Greetings, everyone, and welcome to SIRDCAST number 8 with the amazing Hazizi Jaafar of the Singapore Armed Forces Band. Hazizi, you are joining Ali and I today. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
You're welcome. I'm more than happy to chat with, with the two of you any time of day. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, so I think we've got some questions lined up, but we always kind of like to do is start off really with the beginning. So Ali, do you want to start kicking off questions for Hazizi?
Of course. So Hazizi, one of our members from the beginning. We met in Bern. I think that was your first trip to Switzerland, correct?
Second trip.
Second.
First was when I met Philip in Basel.
So you were starting in Basel to meet all these guys, our guys together.
Yeah.
So that was the start, how we met. And then you joined all over from Singapore, our symposium. So that was Bern and Paris. And you're a very active member of our community, SIRT. But actually, what you never told us, and I think let's start there. Where did you start your drumming? And why did you do that, and how this story went along?
So I started in my high school, my secondary school in Singapore, we call it. So when I was 13, you know, everyone has to join like an extra curricular activity after school, and I kind of wanted to join soccer, football, one of those sports. But like there was a long queue. There was a long queue to register for that, and then I saw the band. And then the band had no one queuing up. So I was like, and they had like a drum set out. It was quite cool. So I thought, yeah, why not? Let's just give it a go. So I started there, joined my school's military band. And I got sent to try out for the tuba section. So I didn't play tuba. I just held the instrument for like a week, and I told the conductor, like, look, I don't really want to play this thing. It's ugly, it's heavy. Can I play the drums instead? I think it's cooler. So yeah, so I started there and then in my secondary school military band, and then it went on to trying out for Singapore Youth Orchestra. When I was 15, I made it through somehow. So I spent a bulk of like my teenage years in my school's band, and then into the Singapore Youth Orchestra. And then it went off from there, going into the art school in Singapore, and then eventually the career that I'm having right now. So yeah, that's how I started. So fun fact, you guys didn't know I played the tuba. I held the tuba for a week. So.
Just to say that also, I mean, you didn't mention it, but in Singapore, the army service is compulsory.
Yeah, so every male Singaporean son has to go through 2 years when they reach 18, or when they finish their diploma studies. Yeah.
So you get now for 2 years, you get your drummers where you can build something up.
Yeah. In the past, it was a whole lot of drummers coming in, but with the low birth rates, the past few years, the past 10 years to be exact, there's a big decline in the number of drummers coming in, or actually just the number of soldiers enlisting to do 2 years. So there's a big shortfall right now in the military. So we are trying to do what we can do, by upgrading the people that we have, so as we don't lose out. Even though the numbers might be short, but quality is more important right now. So
yeah. So question about that. So I know some armies, some military cultures have a school of music where they bring people kind of in off the street and teach them from the very beginning. Does the Singapore Armed Forces, they look for trained musicians? What's that relationship look like?
Right. So we have like an audition process when they first come into basic training. Uh, they go through basic training first, and then halfway through it, there's an audition. So if they are, I would say, if they are good enough, we will take them in. But we have had, like with every organization, I'm sure there's been screw ups. So we have had like people coming in with no music background sent to us, and and this guy's like, I have never played anything in my life. Why am I here? But there's this one guy, and he eventually started off by playing just the bass drum, just keeping a really steady beat, enough to last a parade. So he did well. Like within his 3 months, 6 months in with us, he actually picked up like basic percussion skills, and he really excelled through that. And by the end of his 2 years, he was playing quite decently. I would say like even better than some of the high school people that came in. So we do have like amazing hardworking success stories. But not everyone though.
Yeah. I think that's incredible because I mean, you start to think about the power of music, and if that person hadn't by accident maybe sent over to you, that his life could have been looking very different.
Yeah. He was forever grateful. He was like, I'd rather be doing this than being in the jungle for a whole week and eating off like MREs. So yeah.
Can you talk about that? Actually, I'm very interested in that. What does basic training look like?
So for us, it's basic training is in an offshore island. So you're sent there for 3 months. The first 2 weeks are confined in that island. You don't get out. So you go through all the basic soldiering skills, all the physical stuff, shooting, grenades, basic jungle warfare, and basically just the basic soldiering skills that are required for any soldier. Right. So that's basic training for us. Yeah.
And then everyone who joins has to go through that basic course. Are there any circumstances where people don't do that?
So there's different grades. If you are, physically, if you don't meet the physical criteria, if you have some like medical issues, you'll get sent to like a different basic training, like a vocational one, and it's less taxing on you. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to hop into the next set of questions, and if that's all right with you, Ollie. So you've been now with the Singapore Armed Forces Band for how many years?
Hold on. I'm in my 13th year now. So
okay. And I think after speaking with you and getting to know you now, I mean, I think it's probably close to 6, 7-ish years now of just kind of communicating.
Yeah.
You've told me a lot about just how things have changed, the people that have come in, the style of music, the types of percussion that's happening. Can you share just like your experience over the years of what the band has kind of been through and where it is today?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when I came in, and this was 2009, what we lacked was, I would say, identity. So when we traveled, when I first came in, we were just, Singapore band. That's it. People didn't really know us. People were quite hesitant of what we do and all. So throughout the years, there's been like a big progress, especially in the musical standards. When I remember before I joined the army band, when I was in like music college, you know, I would always hear people talking shit about the army band. They were like, "Ah, those guys suck. You know, don't ever join them. You know, they're not good. You know, playing the community band is better. You know, and that kind of stuff." But you know, like, but the moment you join in, you realize, you know, it's not bad, and there's room to grow individually and as a section or as a whole band. So ideally, it's the mentality of how the people inside take this job, how professional they want to push it. You know, of course, every organization want to push to the best that they can be, but it takes time, takes a lot of effort, and I would say restructuring as well. So things are really different now than what it was 12, 13 years ago. So yeah, we are, you know, I dare to say we are more professional. We wear the uniform with pride these days, as compared to what it was last time. You know, it's just taking on that identity and being, you know, proud to wear the uniform. It's something that not everyone gets to do. So and especially now, I think when you see a lot of music grads come out, and you know, everyone wants to have, you know, that orchestra job, that orchestra gig, but it's, you know, there's only so few, and especially in Singapore, there's only one professional orchestra. So you know, you gotta make the best of what there is. So we've got lots of good talent coming in, and yeah, it makes a whole lot difference when people start to treasure their art form and not give up on it just because they don't get an orchestra job. You know, there's always something else, and the army band here is the alternative. I wouldn't say alternative. I would say we are different in so many ways, and
I would say it's an opportunity.
Yeah,
say it's an opportunity.
It is.
And I think, Mark, what you just mentioned, that's exactly what I also wanted to explore. Because for me, when I was invited, when we went over one of the first SIRD events, who really are not a symposium, so I like that very much. But I think this liaison, how you actually, as an army man, we talked now a lot about where you came into the Singapore Armed Forces. But when I was there, you told me that you were very much influenced by the British, of course, from heritage reason. Then we went to this museum. It was very interesting to see, and how you actually also made a difference in. You connect with musicians who are non-army. You do a lot of other things. Maybe we talk afterwards as well. But also you opened it up to the young people. And I was amazed because in Singapore, you do a lot for education. And I think you support, I mean, you are not a large country. You cannot have a population like around you, but you have a clear sophistication on education and music and so on. And I like that very much. And can you talk a little bit about that, how you build up this collaboration or this exchange with the young civil conservatories, with the professional band, and how you manage to get these people to get attraction? I think that was really amazing to see that, you know?
Right. So, and I have to say everything started off from SIRD. To be honest.
So Mark, you did something good. So
yeah.
No, good. No, go on.
Yeah. So like I remember in Bern, you know, that week that we had at the first symposium, and with everyone sharing about, you know, what they do with the community, what they do with the group, with the outreach and all that kind of stuff, with the youth corps or like the cadets and stuff, you know, these were things that were always around us in Singapore, but we never chose to look into it, to dive into it, or to be even part of it. So coming back from Bern, you know, I think I don't think it was coming back. I think it was on the plane back. I was already writing stuff down, like things that I can do, things that I can reach out. people, groups, organizations, schools, art colleges, even the conservatories, to just see how much I can push this art form and collaborate it with not just rudimental drumming, but also the military aspect and the national aspect of things to really make a difference. To simply put it, to make a difference to the community than what it's always been in Singapore. It was always very stagnant. It's the same thing. We never had a push to go above and beyond. So I guess CERT really opened up my eyes. That first symposium.
I love. Yeah, I love hearing this, because one of the things that I find is every time I would take a trip, I would always leave going back home, and I would break out my notebook and I would just write down, try to capture moments. And oh man, that time we were at this restaurant talking to Philip Uche, talking to so and so, and you write down that moment and you try to grab kind of maybe a quote or like an impactful moment. And weirdly enough, I'm like very visual with this. I would always try to picture like, what was the weather like that day? Was it sunny out? Was it raining? What were the kinds of things that made that feeling have that kind of impact? And usually it's, the surroundings, the company you're with, the conversation, the mindset. But you hit on something I think that transcends nationalities, which is this idea of the status quo and people that, are very okay with how things are. And I know that we've had many conversations about like, what is next? What is the next big push? How do we develop? And you actually hit on 3 of the pillars that I talk about with the old guard quite a bit, which is when we're good musicians, we are always striving for that performance excellence, right? And we're trying to get better. We practice. We want to get better, but it's so self-centered. It's so self-centric, so ego-centric. And you have to have that because you have to make yourself better. But then once you recognize that you are as good as you are and you've gotten to a point of success, you have to take that and step back, which it's funny because there's so many musicians that do not do that. They just, their whole life or their whole career, it's about them. And you brought up, what the Singapore Army Band or what it was like, over the years. And so one of the things I think that's very interesting is that the history and the community about Singapore is unique. It's this melting pot of ideas. So there's this idea of that all the time, something new could be a part of what you do. And then you're talking about giving back to the community through the cadets and everything. So I think that is incredible that you're doing that.
So I try.
But let's talk now. We talked about you as an educator, but you're also a composer and you're also a teacher. So let's talk a little bit about what are the influences for you? Who are the ones who are really said, yeah, this is something I wanted to achieve. I remember you have a fable for drinks. We come later to it for your composition. They always sound like a drink. But I'm not talking here about the influence was the alcohol or whatever, but I'm really, it all starts with the story, and Mark said it very right. So you have to be aware of there is something happening in that moment, and there is a lot of things coming together, and let's talk about that as well. So who influenced you, and who are the things when you say, wow, that's where I really try to this gives me really next to SIRD as an institution, but I mean, who are these people, or who are the styles you think, oh yeah, that's what I really worked on it. So let's talk about the composer.
Well, let's start back. So I have to give thanks to like my first percussion teacher who really pushed me out there. So his name is Lim Beng Kay. So he still is a percussionist in the Singapore Symphony. So I was fortunate enough to get like 3 lessons from him as part of the Singapore Youth Orchestra program as I was growing up. So he has quite a lot of influence in my playing and stuff. But you know, as you dive into a more specific sub genre, then then we have more other people's coming into influence. So sorry, excuse me. So in with all this rudimental drumming aspect, I have to admit, all that I knew before meeting all of you guys was just from the internet. And even before there was like YouTube and stuff, it would be like, and I remember this was maybe when I was in high school during my first year. The only source of online content you could find was maybe, what was that called? It was on the VicFurf website where they had all these lessons and little snippets of lessons and stuff. And I think Dr. John Wooten was one of them. If I'm not wrong, he was one of the first few who kickstarted off all this online VicFurf lessons and stuff. So I'm quite excited. Like, I mean, Mark, there's a project going on, and Dr. Wooden's one of them. Yeah, so it's quite fun. So yeah, it started off from there. I didn't really dive into it. It's like, okay, this is cool. This is interesting. And then coming into the military job, and as we travel the world every year, so going in, I would like observe all these other militaries and see their style, and see what made them special, what was interesting, what gives them that sound, that look, that aspect. And one of the first really professional ones that hit me were, I think it was the King's Guard from Sweden. Kings of Queens, I don't know. I can't remember.
David.
Yeah, so David Lindbergh's group. And we did the Malmo tattoo in 2013. Cert was not up. There was no connections whatsoever. I didn't meet David there. I just got his drumstick. That's all. That's all I remember. I had a drumstick with the name David Lindbergh. This is cool. This is a nice white drumstick. Like, I like this.
It's better than a business card.
Yeah. Yeah. So and then we fast forward to the symposium in Bern. It's like, David Lindbergh. This guy sounds familiar. It's like, I have his drumstick. So yeah, that's cool. But yeah, I'm sorry, I tend to sidetrack, but talk about like people who influence me and all that. It's really all these militaries and drum groups who are already established. So I find influence in that, trying to grasp whatever concepts and things that make them special. So I try to take all that in and see where I can twist and turn and make my own, or like how I can bring that into the army band in Singapore. So
I love it.
It's a lot of years in progress. So
yeah, but Hazizi, you are now very really. I mean, let's talk about these influences. I mean, you as a composer again, you were writing for your group for this. And I remember you showed us Yamazaki was your famous piece, and there for us it's a little bit. I mean, when I see it, you try really to blend in traditional, but also very very rhythm from a percussion arts. So you are we call it, Mark and me, we are working very hard on to standardize and to give them a name. So we call it now a little bit the hybrid drumming. So really to have this I say really the base is really the rudimental drumming, but you add some culture, I would say culture, and also some percussion influences. And let's talk about that. So I was really amazed how you blended the things you just explained to us from all these inspirations into your writings, into your compositions.
So like with Yamazaki, it was it was my second trip to the Tokyo tattoo. It's not called the Tokyo tattoo, but let's just put it there because it's a long name to say out. But it was my second trip. The first trip I did, I was still a young soldier. I didn't know much, didn't do much. But the second trip there, that's when, all this interaction and talking, basically just talking. Just never be shy to talk. That was one thing that I learned throughout all these years. Never be shy to talk to someone. So second trip, 2018 to Tokyo, I met people from the Japanese army band, and then we really hit it off well, and we started continue keeping in touch even after we left. So by the time we were leaving, I remember one of them gave me a nice bottle of Japanese whiskey called Yamazaki, and it's like, it's a nice gesture from them. I think I will write a piece of music based on their ethnic style of drumming with all their taiko drum stuff. So it was fusing together all this rudimental drumming and Japanese traditional rhythms, just trying to blend that in. So that was my first first composition that I think I put like 120% effort into it. Yeah.
So are there other pieces or other trips where you just wanted to mention who influenced you as a composer?
So I mean, I've written stuff before, but it's always just really, to me, it's like hit and miss. But we still use it. We still bring it out time to time. So in my head, I do have one, and I kind of want to name it. I think it was a bottle of water in Bern. When we had those breaks, and we would just hang around the table. Yeah. And then this guy came up to me, this guy named Mark Riley. He came up to me and then he goes, "So you're from Singapore? How do you speak English?" Singapore. So I will always remember that.
I knew that was going to come up in this interview. I knew it.
It'll always come up, but I do want to write something off of that memory, like when you say writing down stuff, moments, places, incidents that inspire you and give you that thought process. I think that has been one that's been in my head for the longest time. So that might be my next title.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring that up because when we did the interview with Ross Andrews, who did Joe 90 with Brian Petney, and also with Dominic Cuccia, both of them, the amount of music they wrote that was never used is incredible because they have to get their ideas out. And when you're putting those ideas out there, you're probably going to have maybe 10 to 15, hopefully you have 20% of the ideas actually work. But I mean, you have somewhere 80 to 90% of the writing is just, but to get to that top level, you have to keep writing, and writing and writing. So I'm with you. I try to do the same thing whenever I write something. Is like I write it down, and then you kind of see how it fits, and then it starts to build, and maybe you get an 8-bar phrase, and then maybe you get a longer phrase. But so this kind of bridges into another question I wanted to ask about your training. Coming from a classical world with a youth orchestra. And then learning kind of those fundamentals of, how to read music, how to write music. And then you get thrown into this world of this traditional rudimental drumming where, the guys from Basel write one way. Oh, but the French are going to flip it upside down. But no, the French are going to say that they're right because they, all that kind of stuff. And then, when we got to hang out in Singapore, you were talking to me about Malays, food and culture. And so, and then Indian style of music coming in too. So it's like you have all of these things at your buffet table that you can choose from. So when you're thinking about, I guess to kind of focus the question, when you're thinking about music arranging from a classical point of view, do you use that kind of as a reference to stick some of these other traditions into it? Or how do you think about that?
So I do take reference. So depending, so let's say I was writing a solo for one of our shows, and the theme of it is all this culture and stuff, and especially so if it's for an international show, we would really want to showcase all this culture, tradition, and whatnot. So one thing that I do put in rhythmic elements of cultures in Singapore. We try our best to. I mean, the whole music written for the band already has all these colors and all these phrases that already sound Chinese or Indian or Malay. So if we break into a drum solo, we want to also incorporate that to see how we can infuse and blend it, and see how we can make it hybrid and still sound interesting. We want to be able to share with people, all these cool, intricate rhythms that they don't really get to hear every day. So that's one of the things. But coming from a classical background, so I know whoever's listening to this and is a classical percussionist is gonna hate me, but I'm so sorry. All you classical people are just.
We leave that in. Hazizi, we leave that in.
Yeah, you gotta step out of it, and really embrace culture. And I think one thing that I'm really glad is to be able to travel the world, or had been able to travel the world before COVID happened, and get to know people from France, from Switzerland, from the US, from the UK. And then, when you meet people and listen to them talk, you kind of understand why they drum the way they drum. It has a lot to do with how they speak, their culture, and it reflects a lot in their drumming. And I don't know if this has been brought up before, but even in Singapore, and it's a cool thing, the way Indians speak, it's really quick. Like I can never do it, but I'm not even gonna try. But because of that, their ethnic drumming sounds exactly like how they speak. It's really complex, complicated. It sounds really cool. And then when we have like the Chinese rhythms, they're so strict, so powerful. It's the same as how they drum with all their big drums and all that kind of stuff. So it has a lot to do with your culture, how you speak, that translates into your drumming or even your music, to be precise. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Because I think when you all came to the Virginia Tattoo in 2017, that was something you were trying to show me, was how you were using the Indian drums and the Indian rhythms inside of the band's show. And I thought that was amazing, because I had heard Indian drumming, of course, kind of stand alone by itself, but to put that inside of a kind of classical, instrumentation of a wind band, and then with singing and a drum line and all that, it was incredible. And I had never really heard or seen anything like that. And it's another thing too, because in the US, you have lots of people coming from all over the world, and American folks will try to copy what they think they heard or something like that. And I always found it to be really interesting, because when you go to the countries that actually do that style of music, maybe the guys in the US, we kind of have an idea about it, but we really don't. we have a few people have a real good idea because they went there to study it. But I mean, speaking to people who have lived that tradition and lived with all of those influences, it's the tradition is so rich and deep that it's kind of mind-boggling. And I mean, from my point of view, I am incredibly grateful to have met you, and to have you brought me into this whole world of what Singapore music is, from the jazz side, from the classical side, from the traditional side. And it opened my mind, and again, it makes you realize that you are this one little piece of this thing we call music, and it does. And I'm glad that SIRD has become kind of this brother and sisterhood of drummers from around the world. But I mean, it's inspiring to chat with you about kind of your upbringing and how it all fits today with your composing. And honestly, what I'd love to really kind of dive into next, if it's all right, is teaching. Because I know when I came to visit you, you had introduced me to a couple of the cadet folks, and we did a workshop there. So what does that look like? Obviously, you probably are the rock stars for these kids there, and they look up to you, and you all, have some kind of program, I think, with them. Is that correct?
We don't have like a fixed program with them. It's kind of a weird thing. It's they like on the parade and on their like so the cadets are like they do this for their extracurricular activity in school, and it's a specific school that helms this role as the cadet band of the National Cadet Corps, who look up to the Singapore Armed Forces. So they pretty much are like miniature copies of us, from the uniforms, from everything. It's almost the same, just half the size. They're like little minions. They're cute, though. Yeah, so we've done. We used to do like our National Day parades. They used to be right beside us, so they would learn a lot, and I think they really look up to us. You can see them. During the breaks, they're coming up to you like.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, the sad thing is we don't have a specific program where they are attached to us, or we go down to train them and stuff. So that's something that's not built up yet. But I've gone down a couple of times to give them like some workshops and stuff, just to make sure that they are in line with what we do. So that when they do come and join us, they don't get shocked. They don't, it's not like a culture shock. Like, oh, this is what you guys do? Oh, we didn't know that. Yeah, but they've got like quite good alumni backing. So like there are seniors who have aged out and passed out. They still come back and help them out, and it's really heartening to see that. It's awesome. Hopefully they're like the next generation to come in. Yeah.
Cool. So I think we had to try to have a few of our questions that we skipped over here quick. So I want to go back to experiences in the Singapore Armed Forces Band. They had to have been incredible. Could you share? We've talked about Malmo and things like that. But what are some other highlights that you can share with us?
Wow. So the biggest one would be we did a state funeral for our founding father of Singapore, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. He was pretty much the guy who brought Singapore up to what it is today. So that state funeral was, I think, the most meaningful gig I've ever done in my time in the band. There's so much meaning to the job, other besides just playing drums and all that kind of stuff. But you represent the country and you represent an organization that. I'm sorry. There we go. But yeah, it's such a solemn and important event that it makes you realize how much meaning this job has. You are essentially the selected few out of millions who do this gig, and no one else can do it. It's not one of those gigs where you're like, hey, there's a funeral coming. Do you want to do that? Yeah. But you it's part of your job, and it brings a whole lot of meaning to being a military musician and representing the country and and the organization. So that's like my most meaningful gig so far. What made it even more memorable was we were up for almost 48 hours without sleep, simply because it was a huge state funeral. They had to close the roads, so they could only do that like at night, like past 12 a.m. So past 12 a.m., roads are closed. Then we go in, run the rehearsals and everything till like 3, 4 a.m. And then we go back to base, crash for a while, and then same thing, go back for another rehearsal in the barracks, rest, and then we go back out on the street for another rehearsal before the actual funeral itself. And on that morning of the funeral, it was raining like cats and dogs, so it was bad. And I was on bass drum. We still had the old bass drums. It was so heavy, and it was, it was draped in black cloth for funerals. So that was soaking wet. It was heavy, and it made it even more, memorable and meaningful to put your body through all this physical and mental torture. I wouldn't say torture, challenge. Yeah, and you execute your mission and mission success, and it feels great at the end of it. So that's my most memorable gig. But every country I go to, there's always something memorable about that. 2012 we went to Moscow, and I was still fresh. I think 3-4 years into my service, still gullible. You didn't know anything. So going there was like an alien nation. Like you could not read anything. And then, it just felt so interesting. And the weather, it was, I think, like 3 degrees or something like that. It was our first time in cold, playing in the Red Square, right in front of the Kremlin. So it was a picturesque moment. Yeah, I mean, every country will have a memorable thing or two about it for us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're really a globetrotter, and I know you love to travel. And I also know, Jaafar, Hazizi, that you really display that really good. Singapore as a nation with different cultures, modern, sophisticated, but also with a strong message to the world. And we always in our circle, we always call you the APEC regional sales manager. And I think, how do you see that? I mean, you brought us with Tokyo. You said you had with a good relation. So what's still coming up there? I mean, what do you see where there are some unknown fields where we could learn, or where we could also engage? India, you told us. I think that's a really interesting part. But where do you see that? And also, where do you see now, after 2 years of lockdown, who is harsh in the beginning for all of us? How do you? What is the next step from you? What do you want to achieve, or how do you see that? So there's actually 3 things a little bit in the same direction.
Yeah. So let's go back. So lockdown is hard. Like Singapore's been in and out of lockdown. We just got out of one small lockdown last week, so it's been tough for us. Just staying at home or going to the barracks, and you gotta go back straight home after you go to work. You can't eat out, you can't do anything. So it is quite a mental challenge for everyone. But looking beyond, I think, and I have to say, COVID definitely has put a pause in a lot of things that could happen and should have happened. But one thing that I do want to look into is to try and connect with people around Singapore. So countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, all these neighboring countries. As much as the military itself has a lot of connection with them, but the bands and the music side, there's still a big disconnect. So it's kind of tough trying to go in to like a country and, hey, who's your head? Who do I talk to? Yeah, that's tough. So like with Japan, I was fortunate. You know, Ayami could speak English, and she was well diverse in everything, and she was so on the ball about all this. So that was really nice to get her on board with CERT. So I'm hoping that whoever's watching this, if you're from neighboring Singapore, please come and drop me a message. Yeah, yeah.
I think that's probably another piece too, is, I mean, realizing that we're all kind of in that lockdown, not lockdown boat. So maybe because of that, it's maybe people want to have more openness, or maybe it's easier to have access because people are stuck. And, I think it's one of those things too, where you just shoot a message out there and you never know. But I mean, again, who do you send the message to? Do you it becomes a research project if you have no idea where to start, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Well, awesome. So, another question here too. We've talked about inspiration. We've talked about your first instructors. Also, I mean, from a mentorship point of view, if you talk about mentorship, I know that you have talked about the cadets, then the kids that you mentor, but do you have folks that you have as mentors in your life, or have had them in the past that have brought you to where you are?
Wow. I would say one guy that I can think of, or one person, would be my high school band director. So he, I think he saw a side of me which I didn't see. So he really, gave me all these opportunities and chances to lead the percussion section when I was in school. So I kind of got my taste of leadership at that young age. So with that, going into the military, it kind of helped sink things in. Everything's aligned. You kind of understand why you need to have a leader in a section, in a band. So I'm kind of grateful for him. I don't know if he'll watch this, but Mr. Lin, thank you for all those years of me torturing you and giving you stress and hard times. But it has helped tremendously with what I'm doing now. And he taught me a great sense of what it is to respect someone, to respect other people. When you're young, you're just naive, rude to say the least.
Yeah.
But you grow up changing and realizing what you've done wrong. So I still look back to the days that I had in my high school band and go like, oh, that's what I did wrong. That's what I should change, and that's what affects the future. So it's little things like this, and people who come in your life and leave, but they leave a lasting impression on you. So he's one of them. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to go with the final segment here. Final 4 questions. All right. So short answers, long answers, you choose, but let's kind of rapid fire this sucker. All right. So if you have a favorite drum solo, what is it?
It would be Joe 90, of course.
Nice. Yep.
Joe
Ross
90.
Andrews, Brian Petney.
Yeah.
Changing the world still.
Yeah.
Ollie, you have a next one?
Yes. Well, let me have a look. I mean, I'm still waiting for the one. We know already your favorite drumstick. It's David Lindbergh. So is it another one? I remember I also received from you a drumstick from the Singapore Armed Forces.
Yeah.
Is that still your favorite one?
Yeah, I'm not trying to be boastful, but I do love the stick that I designed with Agner.
Oh, good.
Which has the Singapore Armed Forces logo on it.
Okay.
Everything from the thickness, the taper, the head size, everything was
excellent.
Thought out. So that's my favorite stick. It's for it. For Asian hands, yeah. For Asian hands, we need something lighter, so that works well for us.
I love it. All right, so both of us love to chat about growth and mindset and things like that. Do you have a favorite book?
Wow, it might be controversial, but I think my favorite book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. It's not a music book, but it teaches you a lot. Especially in terms of when you kind of question yourself and the things you do, but you're doing it and you know why you're doing it, and it's for your own good, and for the people who you look after, it's for their own good. So there will be haters. So that book kind of just teaches you, don't give a damn about it. Do what you do, go out and do your best with it. So yeah, that's my controversial book.
Great. Good. So we talked about your stick, about your book, about the impacts, about your culture, what you like as a composer. But what are your favorite groups, ensemble, what you ever have played in? I know you mentioned a lot of tattoos, but let's talk a little bit also about drumming groups.
Favorite drumming group? I think that's a hard one. I think this is gonna be a controversial answer, to say the least. I think Mark knows that my answer coming out. It would definitely be the old guard. I think when we got to drum with them in Virginia, that was the pinnacle moment that changed the group from the Singapore Armed Forces. That's where we realized, hey, as a group, these guys are nice. We always see them on YouTube. They look, mean and tough. But when you go to drum with them, they're like the best people ever. So the guys in the old guards, you're always my favorite. I would also have to say the guys from Top Secret as well. I've never drummed with them, but they are a big name in this art form around the world. People who don't play music, they'll be like, Top Secret. Yeah, I know Top Secret. Yeah. So at least you can connect that way.
No, listen, and this is, I think, really something what I like very much, and I think both of us, Mark and you, how you look at it and how you can say, like you say, I never was afraid to go to people and ask them or support them, and I think that's also a gift, and it shows also in this interview that you are not shy of really seeing what's on and where you can adapt. I like that very much. Is there anything you also want to add to our question here in this round to finalize this awesome to tell the world? I mean, you approached already Asia Pacific. Thanks a lot. So, but anything you think of you want to tell us on the audience?
I feel like I'm getting trapped here. Well, all that I do want to say is, all to everyone in SIRD, thanks for everything. I think thanks for the friendship, the brotherhood, and that openness that we have in this group. I think it's a beautiful thing to get people from all around the world coming together and talking, sharing, experiencing all this stuff together. I think also, sorry, I had something in my head. Oh gosh. All right, no, I'm
no problem. But you will come next. No problem. Will you join also the second digital event in September?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, great. And definitely live in Portsmouth next year, correct?
Fingers crossed.
If the system allows, if the situation allows.
Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for that.
So I think this has been a great interview. I mean, Hazizi, it's been fantastic to see you and be able to catch up again. And I know all of our hearts are with you and the folks in Singapore. And also I know from Zurich and Switzerland and everybody that's in the SIRD family, being able to put these podcasts together has really been able to help just bring that community back together, whether it's from lockdown, whether it's trying to get over a sickness. So many folks who have had COVID or other illnesses are looking for something to keep propping them up. And I know the folks that are going to listen to this are going to be inspired by your story. So thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Hazizi.
All right.